content featured in the following broadcast is purely for educational information purposes. It is based on real-life experiences and POV. Do not contact anyone featured or referred to in this video.
In this video, we're going to be looking at YouTuber merch and why it's a terrible idea. So I get it. You're a YouTuber. You've got an audience. You've got bills to pay. But merch is not the one. And before you all say anything, I'm going to show in this video how merch does not make enough profit to justify its existence. It's just another scam by, guess who? Venture capitalists. So in my previous video, I tried to explain how they control the market via purchasing apps, and the merch business is no different. And what's made it worse recently is the use of AI tools to design, which I think is just an insult to designers everywhere, to real people with real talent, but that's another story. And so when it comes to YouTube content, I watch everything from commentary, deep dives, DIY, renovation, homesteading, and I appreciate the creators and I want to support them. And I want to feel they're authentic. So when I see them wearing their branded hoodies and t-shirts and cushions featuring in the background, I just knew I had to look into it. And I'm not naming and shaming any individuals in particular. Please don't take my word for it, and please go and do your own research. I feel like it's something to call out, particularly where we've got creators claiming to be on the side of justice and human rights. So branded merch has been a thing for decades now. And like I pointed out in my last video, we have reached oversaturation with how much clothing we do have on the planet. So I just think that having a push for any single person that has a following to start making their own merch is just a bit excessive. But I'm kind of focusing on the YouTube world here. So according to this Newsweek article from 2018, there was a push on YouTubers to partner with a company called Teespring. And they claim there was an adpocalypse, meaning that YouTube creators were no longer living the ad dream and now needed to pivot to a new form of making income. So at VidCon 2018, YouTube announced new ways to help creators make more money, including a new merchandising tool that will make it easier to purchase merch from their faves. And the partnership was announced with a company called Teespring, now known as Spring, because they had a name change after several lawsuits were filed. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So as I had guessed, by 2014 they had raised a massive $55 million in venture capital from Cosia Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz. Well, I'll have to look them up. And by 2018, they had launched their merchandise shelf integration in partnership with YouTube, enabling creators to sell their products directly. They expanded the business model to offer that service to Twitch streamers, Instagram, TikTok, etc. I think OnlyFans, Snapchat. Now, what does that make me think of? However, over the past few years, according to Wikipedia, Teespring has had to make significant reforms to its safety operations in response to criticism over apparel that promoted violence and racist messaging. And in 2019, they became rebranded as Spring. They've also got several lawsuits pending, that's just from 2023, which we're going to take a look at. And in certain media outlets, it's being reported that YouTubers such as PewDiePie, who I can't help noticing, is partnered with the same software company, Amaze, that bought Spring. And side note, what is this shirt about? Then there's Jake Paul. Probably the less said about him, the better. Mr. Beast, there's a whole top 20. And they're all making so much money. And that's what you should be doing. And the timing can't be ignored. At the same time, they're pushing out the idea that you too could become a merch entrepreneur. The AdSense revenue split is going down. But I think we need to take a closer look at that, because my suspicion is they're being paid by these companies, and it's not just unethical, it's unrealistic. I'm not even sure the name of this company or who owns it anymore, due to all the name changes and takeovers. But according to their social media and website, which are still active, you could almost be fooled into believing that they really value and respect creative people, and that the way for creative people to achieve success is by making merch, using their platform. I mean, does that sound a little bit too good to be true?
There's a growing movement comprised of those who won't compromise. They are the creators. They make something new where there was nothing before.
He's not lying. Creative do create something out of nothing, but tech companies do the opposite. So something's not adding up here.
So we say to all creators, your time is now to champion fresh ideas, build new movements, and earn what you deserve. Earn what you deserve. From here on out, you define creativity. You define creativity. You define creativity, community, and commerce. We're just here to provide everything you need to make all that you imagine.
Did we just land in AI-generated fairyland? If we look at the lawsuits and Jake Paul's business model, there is no way these people value creatives.
For a guy who bragged about making $50 million last year from an empire based around merch sales, there's no good reason, no ethical reason, not to pay for some original artwork for merch. Jake Paul is selling clip art on his merch.
In case you don't know, clip art is a free public art resource. It's free. It's for schools. It's for community centres. It's not for commercial use. He's misused an open resource. He's not bothered about the quality of the design, and to be fair, his fans are probably going to buy whatever he sells. I'm pretty sure he doesn't care about the cotton industry being terrible for the environment and the exploitation of workers. But despite all these influencers and all the millions raised, the company just weren't paying their bills. And we're going to start getting into these lawsuits, because this is where things take a real dark turn. This business owes a lot of money. They think by changing their name they can get out of paying, and a bit like Jake Paul, they don't think they have to pay for things. So the cheek of promoting an idea that they support creative people is ludicrous. Merch company Spring has been hit with numerous lawsuits this year. According to this article published by Business Insider in September 2023. And I've also checked some of the actual court dockets for verification. The creator merchandise company Spring has been hit with a slew of lawsuits this year following the sale of its assets. We don't know what they were in late 2022 to the software company Amaze. And they thought they were going to get out of paying, but the lawsuits keep coming. And isn't there a name for that kind of activity? So they currently owe $1.5 million to shipping companies, previous vendors who allege they haven't been paid, a former employee, they owe taxes, you name it, they haven't paid it. So it says Spring struggled in the months before the sale of its assets to Amaze, following its rebrand from Teespring to Spring in 2021. The startup faced challenges, including mass layoffs in 2022, with creators complaining to Insider about delayed payouts and a decline in product quality. So here's a list of the 7 lawsuits that have been filed or refiled against Spring in 2023. And here's where we get down to the real mud, the real mess of this situation. Because we see a name popping up, a name of a defendant named in this lawsuit, and that is Sam Altman. And if you're wondering where you've heard that name before, it's because he's the name behind the current controversy surrounding OpenAI and ChatGPT. And I don't know how this guy sleeps at night. In fact, I imagine he probably doesn't. The amount of people he's got suing him, including Elon Musk. He allegedly lied to the Senate. He got fired by his board of directors for breaches in security. He uses loopholes in corporate law to rip people off. All this to make billions for banks. And yet he still dresses like a 10-year-old.
Okay, next is Walker Williams from Teespring. Teespring went through YC a year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah. I almost rejected them because I thought it sounded like a dumb idea, but now they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year of revenue, so very luckily I did not. And Walker's going to talk also about doing things that don't scale.
All right, thank you guys for having me. My name is Walker. I'm the CEO and founder of Teespring. For those of you guys who don't know what Teespring is, we're an e-commerce platform that allows entrepreneurs to launch products and apparel brands without risk, cost, or compromise. Today, the company is about 180 folks, and we ship tens of thousands of products each day. And I want to talk to you about one of the most fundamental advantages you have as a startup. And that's that you're able to do things that don't scale. And I define things that don't scale as things that are sort of fundamentally unsustainable. They will not last. They will not bring in the millionth user.
What?
He's literally just said that the company's a rip-off, but let's get back to the article. OpenAI's Sam Altman is also named as a defendant due to his prior investments made in Spring and former involvement on the company's board. Lamontagne and Jansen, wait, they hired the ex-VP at Meta? I bet she got paid. Took roles at Amaze following the asset sale, assuming the titles of President and Chief Business Officer, respectively. But the two former Spring executives are no longer employed by Amaze. See how they jump ship to avoid being sued? Amaze Holding Company, a subsidiary of Amaze Software Inc., which acquired an undisclosed amount of Spring's assets, has also been named as a defendant in 3 of the lawsuits reviewed by Insider. Well, they tried to wiggle out of it, but in fact the acquisition of Spring's assets has become a key point in some of the lawsuits. For instance, in a June filing from a lawsuit made by the former Teespring employee Ty Holes, the plaintiff claimed that the company deliberately misled the former employee into thinking that he would be paid what he was owed, for purposes of holding him off long enough to enter a transaction. The transaction was Spring's sale of assets to Amaze. DHL's suit also alleges that it is owed $133,000 for services provided to Spring after the asset acquisition. In March, 3 product vendors hired by Spring told Insider that after the asset acquisition by Amaze, they were left in the dark about how to get paid. I really hope that wasn't the people that made the promo content for them. One vendor who shared an email exchange with Spring said it felt like the company rubbed their hands and said, "We're a different company and we don't owe you guys anything anymore." So I think they've made it pretty clear they know how to drain out assets from companies so they can turn around and say, "We don't have any money to pay you." What does that sound like to you? I mean, I know it's technically legal, but it's dirty tricks, and this is what these tech guys get up to make money for banks. And so let's talk about OpenAI. And so Sam Altman, who's on the board of directors of the company formerly known as Spring, is on the board of directors of OpenAI, and Khosla Ventures, who originally invested in Teespring before it was Spring, are also known for being the first investors in the corporate entity of OpenAI. Well, what a coincidence.
Like, I don't understand why Amaze bought Spring. What was their reasoning behind it?
If I had to take a guess, I would say that Amaze Software, who just partnered with PewDiePie on his merch and who previously provided e-commerce tools so that creators can set up AI-generated landing pages. Could this be a way for them to raise the value of their assets, which they can then sell off? And they're going to try the same dirty tricks practiced by Spring or Teespring or whatever they're called. And I never thought that looking into merchandise would lead me down the OpenAI rabbit hole. But here we are. Sam Altman and his partners, they lie at the highest level. And they don't care about creators. And we will get into other ways you can make merchandise in a minute, but just stay with me. In his testimony to the US Senate, he stated, "It was founded on the belief that safe and beneficial AI offers tremendous possibilities for humanity. Well, so far the cutting-edge technology has offered pretty questionable art resources, dodgy text creation, and quite literally facilitated the spreading of misinformation. So that remains to be seen, and the real question is about whether it's safe to install or if it's made it easier for people to scam, which is something Sam seems to know all about, allegedly."
Sam didn't inform the board that he owned the OpenAI startup fund, even though he, constantly was claiming to be an independent board member with no financial interest in the company. On multiple occasions, he gave us inaccurate information about the small number of formal safety processes that the company did have in place, meaning that it was, basically impossible for the board to know how well those safety processes were working or what might need to change.
Can private companies pushing forward the frontier of a revolutionary new technology be expected to operate in the interests of both their shareholders and the wider world?
Well, we're not even sure how revolutionary it is.
The short answer, unfortunately, my opinion, is no, they cannot. There have been so many companies where when they have to make a decision between shareholder value, which they have a fiduciary duty to deliver, and the greater world, they always choose the shareholder.
And let's not forget that Elon Musk is suing him, and my understanding is that Elon Musk was an investor in OpenAI as a non-for-profit when he owned the startup fund, which he was using to make a profit on. And as for all these questions over the security of it, which he is telling the US government that he should be overseeing the security checks on, well, how is that in any way going to benefit humanity? And sadly, that's the root of it. But like I mentioned, there are other companies that do provide merchandising services, and some creators are trying to operate using ethics.
And then we also have that element of disposability or not placing so much value on the products. Because frankly, as a lot of the replies on my Instagram echoed, many people who have purchased merch don't end up wearing it very often, or maybe it ends up being their pajamas. And merch that doesn't get used or worn often reminds me of the freebies problem.
I think it's really important to try to get clothes out of landfills and reuse them. Like the fact that this piece in entirety was made of other pieces that had been discarded, to me, that is awesome. Middle there, that's Chip in cartoon form. Those are also 100% recycled cotton.
So I looked up recycled cotton online, and it does appear to be very much still in the experimental stages. It does use less chemicals and energy, but the fabric quality it produces are not great. And we've not even looked into the issue of polyester fibres, so I'm not sure how accurate her claims are. But it's nice to see that she is actually aware and bringing awareness to the issues. Then there's this guy who recommends you go out and buy your own printer, which is going to pay for itself in 3 months. I don't think so. There's a whole load of these online print-on-demand guru channels, but I would not recommend listening to any of them because they are just making money out of YouTube ads and probably sponsors, in my opinion. And as for the comments that are egging creators on that they must do merch, if you've watched my first video, you'll understand that a lot of these comments are not genuine and possibly AI generated, given that these companies are invested in AI technology. I do believe supporting creative people is very important as a creative person myself, so donating directly if you can afford it or it makes you feel good is always the best option. Based on the research I did in this video, I don't believe the creators that say they produce merch because they have to make a profit are indeed making a profit. The owners of the merch company themselves have stated that their business model is not sustainable, and the company is structured literally to make money for themselves and the banks. I had no idea of the OpenAI connection, and it's been a huge eye-opener. And I hope it helps others to understand this is not something we should be supporting. I want to say a big shout out to the people who helped me researching this video. I hope it makes you feel enlightened rather than despondent. And if you have any ideas for future videos and you have enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.